Hello, Facebook Live. This is your host, Dr. Vibe, Dr. Steven Schwartz, and you are here today for the next episode of the Epic Vibe Show with Dr. Vibe. And I am so excited to have my new friend and guest, Zander's Tron,
Yeah.
on the show. We met at Coachella last week. Well, actually, not at the Unexpected Party.
Yes.
At the Nochella event, and it was really interesting. If I could just share a quick story for everyone, I remember you said to me, you're like, well, I'm surprised that you're here at this event. I'm like, well, I'm surprised you're here at this event.
I was surprised I was there at that event.
Exactly. But we found each other because we were vibing, and now you're here on my show, and you live in Venice, and I live in Venice, and you're my neighbor, and I'm just really excited. So I'm just getting to know you. So why don't you share with our Facebook community a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you're up to, and we're going to talk about 432 music and whatever this takes us here tonight.
I love that. Yeah. So my name is Zander, and I'm a music producer, musician. I played music my whole life. I grew up Southern California, Santa Barbara, and I've been living in Los Angeles and Venice for about 7 years now.
Oh, wow.
I produce music. I started this project called Traveler back in about 2009, and I've been really just trying to push the boundaries of listenable, dancey, feel good. You know, I have a lot of I listen to everything. I love every style and sound. If it's good, it's good. You know, so I try to incorporate tons of different elements into my music. And of course, a couple of years ago, I got sucked down the rabbit hole of 432 music.
Why was that a suck down?
Well,
Because you know what I think is interesting about 432 music. I've been meeting a lot of musicians,
mm-hmm.
and I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor studying music more than I am a musician.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how many musicians, like really good musicians that I've met, that are like, hey man, what do you know about 432? Or is your music in 432? And when we'll talk about it, actually, I'd like to talk about it on the show with you in detail about that. But that's the whole thing is, I don't know if that's a rabbit hole. It seems like it's kind of trendy. It's kind of trendy in a thing, but
I hope so.
So what's happening? There's like an early revolution happening. So how did you get sucked down the rabbit hole? What was it?
Well,
how did you? What was the transition? What's the story?
Let me back up. So when I say sucked down, it's actually it's not. I don't mean that in a negative way. What happened is I started to question. I started to question what I was doing with music. What was the goal, right? Because I always thought I wanted to make people feel good. I wanted to make people happy. I wanted to share my what inspired me to be creative, and keep passing that creative journey to someone else, and let them feel that same feeling that I felt through my music. So I first really started exploring 432 hertz. I'd heard about it through other producers and microtuning and all that, but it never really. I just always brushed it off. And there's a producer out there that goes by the alias Headflux, Hedflux, and he's a he's a PhD Scottish dude physicist who is I think he's an astrophysicist.
Astrophysicist.
And he's a Scottish guy who he had he threw a music producer workshop / festival on the Big Island of Hawaii called Audio Alchemy.
When was that?
And this was the first one. I think it was about maybe 3 years or 4 years ago.
I need to go to that.
Yeah, well, he has since moved back to Scotland, but Audio Alchemy will be back. It's very much alive. There's a big group of us now, probably actively producing, maybe like 40 or 50 of us who are making music, and Steve explains, the way he explains 432 hertz, I mean, it's so logical. It's like, actually, if we have, I mean, really what is music? I mean, it's the interval between notes, right? It's like, it's the spacing between the notes. That's what gives you like that perspective of like da da. Like that space is what gives you, that interval is what gives you that sense of like emotion or feeling, right? And if we're gonna have a scale, a system to, if we're gonna have a system to create music as a language,
Yeah.
then what system better than 432 hertz? Like, why would we peg A to 440 hertz? It doesn't make as much sense, like logically.
Well, yeah, and it's like a 7. It's like a step down from 4. You know, it's like enough to skew it off. You know, and I mean, I remember when I started experimenting with that. I took my guitar and like deprogrammed it into 430, and I thought it was going to be like a really big difference, but it was just like a little softer.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the whole thing. Is like it doesn't sound a lot different, but it has a different feel to it.
Yeah.
And that's great. You know, everybody asks us, probably the number one question people ask me is like, oh, is your music in 432? And for the record, so I have 7 albums.
Yeah.
Of those 7 albums, my first 3 are definitely not in 432. It was, like I said, I'm a doctor studying music, and we were in there, and I'd never been in a recording studio before, and we definitely recorded it in 440, and it was more of like an experiment of like, can we make music?
Right.
Then I started my second generation of music. I started making specifically for this vibroacoustic technology, and we wanted, and that was in 2000. Yeah, that was like 2014, 13, 14, 15 kind of. Yeah, 13, 14.
Yeah.
And so we were starting to work with 432 tuning, and so those are more in those lines. But I feel like what's really interesting about just some of my experience I've had is I'm more. I mean, I want it to sound good. I mean, it's music, okay? Like, I mean,
it sounds good. That's
yeah, I want it to sound good.
good.
But more importantly than that is I'm really trying to accomplish a specific physiological effect. Like when I'm formulating,
the healing effect.
Yeah.
Or like the feel, like a positive feeling.
Well, no. More importantly, than that, I'm actually trying to like shift physiology,
Yeah.
like for a thing. Like I'm trying to, like I have, like on my 3rd album, I have frequencies in there for bone regeneration.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, how do I make a track for regenerating bone?
It's got to be. That has to be real. Like that, I really do believe that sound waves, like it absolutely affects us. It has to.
Of course. Well, that's the only reason we're doing it. In fact, an interesting connection to the Big Island, where I got my inspiration from making that track.
The Healing Island.
Well, you've been to Hawaii, obviously.
Yeah.
How many islands have you been to?
I've been to all of them but Lanai.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've never been to Lanai. That sounds great. What's your favorite?
I love Maui.
I've been to Maui once.
Yeah.
I've been to Maui once. I'd like to go back and let's put it this way. I didn't have a bad experience there. I'd like to go explore the road to Hana again.
Yeah.
I mean,
You said Maui's the heart island, the heart chakra.
that's really interesting about, especially who I was with. I think she needed her heart chakra opened a little. But I've actually had a really strong connection to the Big Island.
I love the Big Island.
But we have a special connection, actually, my girlfriend and I, to Kauai. And we met on Kauai just,
Nice.
that's where this whole journey came from.
That's epic. I love that.
And so have you heard of Hawaiian Huna?
Yeah, what is that? Can you jog my memory here?
Hawaiian Huna is like Hawaiian shamanism.
Yeah.
Like the kahunas on the island. These
Yeah.
are the medicine men, the Hawaiian medicine men. Those are the ones that, like, when the lava flow is, when the volcano's erupting and the lava flow is racing towards the village, then they're the ones that start like redirecting the lava flow like around the town, you know, like they're the sacred shaman of Hawaii. I was introduced to Hawaiian Huna back in 2001 when my girlfriend at the time, anyhow, she was reading this manual. I was like, oh, what are you reading? She's like, oh, it's Hawaiian Huna. And I said, what's that? And So that, oh, it's like the Hawaiian study of manifesting the life of your dreams. I'm like, give me that book. And I started doing it, reading it, and started doing exercise, and it totally worked. Long story short, I ended up spending my 30th birthday on the Big Island, learning Hawaiian Huna. And one of the
spend your 30th.
dude, this was epic. I'm sitting here like, I got these beautiful women, and we're learning about Hawaiian Huna, and I'm getting initiated into these symbols, and it's just a really amazing experience. And but like interestingly enough, I went back 6 months later for more training, and my friend, one of the original, we were snowboarding, and she broke her arm. I used to live in Denver, Colorado, and she lived in Boulder. And she was actually one of my co-teachers of that training. And we were snowboarding like right before we went on the trip, and she broke her arm. And so she's in a cast, and she's miserable, and we're in Hawaii, and it's a beautiful place, and she's not feeling very aloha. She's not feeling the aloha, But I'm sitting on the beach with her, and there's a lot of Hawaiian Huna now in the most modern incarnation. It's really centered around a lot of neuro-linguistic programming. It's like the ancient and the modern kind of combined together. A lot of people that teach Hawaiian Huna are NLP practitioners or master practitioners. Have you heard of NLP?
No.
It stands for neuro-linguistic programming.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's a study. It's a combination of subconscious mind reprogramming techniques, and it's really fascinating. And
is that like through meditation or?
Well, it's through a lot of different exercises, actually.
Breath work and
not even necessarily. It's more about being able to use like different encoded like hypnotic language patterns, where we can. Dr. Ericksonian hypnotic language patterns. He's one of the leading language pattern hypnotherapists of all time. And then there's other ways of taking, like doing a lot of visualization about like something that you would like to, what they talk about, collapsing anchors, where if there's, like think about like what's an anchor. You could have trauma that's an anchor, or you could have like a limitation of creating money, or a limitation of getting a job, or limitation of having a great relationship. And these are like, so you want to be able to collapse that anchor. And they would take you through these guided exercises of visualizing the anchor, and then like really stepping into it, and making it like really brilliantly light, and then making it like expansive, and then making it like all these like what does it smell like, sound like, feel like, and then all of a sudden bringing it down into like it's absolutely nothing, and it burns like, and taking through these exercises and literally reprogramming the subconscious mind. And it's super powerful, very profound, and it's really interesting because I've gotten certified in NLP, and it was a primary pillar of my practice in Colorado, and really these vibe systems. They're what I call NLP. They're subconscious reprogramming devices.
No way, that's so cool.
And the music that I make is like packaged NLP programs.
Yeah.
Except, because here's what I never quite understood about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, or not NLP, but just subconscious reprogramming, period. If the subconscious mind has nothing to do with the conscious mind, then why are we engaging with the conscious mind?
I mean, exactly. That's I think as a musician, as an artist, of any medium, as an artist, like you have to think about these things, right? Because so much goes into the work that a lot of people they won't recognize it in the conscious. Yeah. Right. I mean, like
they connect in some way, shape, or form.
And then of course, like I immediately think about like the old Walt Disney movies where there's like these weird, like perverse subliminal messages with like. But I mean, with the music, I mean, I really believe. So with the 432 hertz, I mean, I believe that when I'm performing, when I'm playing music for a crowd, I mean, I'm giving them a sound bath. You know, they're whatever I'm. You know, like okay, I'm a fan of all music. I love like I personally I love psytrance. I love dubstep. I love the heavy stuff. But I gotta say like the heavy EDM that's like really ravey. I think is extremely dangerous. I think you know, and there's this term weaponized, like, oh, they've weaponized this or that, and especially because I'm a huge conspiracy head, so people say that term a lot. But I actually really do think that it is very, very unhealthy to go stand in front of a massive stack of speakers, get blasted by strobe lights, and listen to horrendous sounds, just loud, that have no musical elements and
or that are dissonant by design. They're dissonant by design.
The tones, like,
yeah.
If you take,
like what are the frequency ranges that they're putting through, and like
right.
and the BPMs and
Precisely.
the whole thing, yeah.
And that's another thing with 432. So okay, obviously tempo is a massive component of music, right? It's like, and our bodies and the beats and our movement, and you know it's breath, heartbeat, pulse. It's all so important, and like even when you sleep, it's subconscious REM cycles, right? Yeah. So tempo, when you tune to 432 hertz, the key at which you're tuning, if you go to specific tempos, I don't know the exact numbers. I have a chart that I produced too. Obviously, I think it's like if you take like the key of G at 120 and you slow it down, a sine wave will actually be a quarter note or an eighth note or a 16th note. So the music is actually pulsating at the same
harmonic,
tempo. And it's in yes, exactly.
It's in flow.
Exactly, and it's all moving in sync and it's harmonious. And to me, that is more healing. So even if you were going to make some really heavy, like electro, glitch hop, or whatever it is that you want to make, to me, it's at least you're doing it in sync with our bodies, and with a rhythm, and it's pulsating where it makes sense logically. It's not just like, let's just pick this frequency and just blast people with it. You know what I mean?
And it's funny because that's where I totally agree. Thank you for saying that.
Dude. And wait, one more thing to add, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
So okay, I always try to make music. Every single one of my songs has a chord progression. There's a lot of music out there where it's based off of one note, and people do that in order to. It's like dulling, right? And I'm all for, sometimes when you're in dance music, you want to get into a little bit of a trance, and I think that's okay. And you hit them with the one note drop, and that's like a thing. Or like the bass line doesn't have a chord progression, but it's just a bass line. But I think that the chord progressions, minor, major, there are tons. I have a book called Chord Progressions for Singers and Songwriters, and it just basically analyzes all the different chord progressions, like jazz and rock and folk and whatever. And it talks about the feelings and the emotions that they instill upon you. And like you take certain chord progressions and they make you feel really good, and then you take other chord progressions and they make you feel kind of like, I don't know. Yeah. And so for me, the chord progression is that's how you tap into a subconscious.
Yeah.
And that's how you get people to feel. And the music, it makes people feel a certain emotion. Like you have to realize that everywhere you go, whether you're shopping or whether you're driving or when you watch TV, in commercials, like music is all around us. As long as there's a world, there will be music.
Exactly. Like I think about like the cavemen, it's like the first thing was like fire, right? And then they got the wheel. But somebody was beating on the, and they're like,
sticks.
And they're screaming like you can't communicate. You're like, and you're like banging, the cavemen. But then like, what if we do two sticks?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, and then like, probably someone there's, and they start, and then there's like, they got a band going. Something's happening, right?
Yeah. That's. Is music, do you think, here's a question. Do you think music predates language?
Of course.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because,
I don't know. I've never.
Well, because think about it. Think about like.
The primordial ohm.
The primordial ohm.
The vibration of the planet.
Or just before, because think about it. I think the answer to that is think about a baby. Like the first thing that comes out, the baby's not singing. The baby's like, it's like making noises.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of, where it comes down to. Or if we think about a lot of music, like a lot of times, like language is modern.
Right.
But once they say, and also in NLP, they say that 93% of communication is nonverbal. And
that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I know every culture, like for example, my dad was born in Greece,
Yep.
and he has all of these mannerisms and little things that he does, like this or like this, and it.
But yeah, he's like, you know he's mad, even though he didn't say a word.
Yeah.
Or he knows that, you
Yeah.
did him proud, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And so like when you go and you travel, you pick these things up, and it's funny. I think maybe the more well traveled you are, maybe the more you, even if your vocabulary is not the best, or
If somebody's mad at you. You know if you did something wrong.
Definitely.
And if somebody.
If you don't, you've got a problem.
I remember I was in Turkey. That place was like the most, like the biggest language barrier that any place that I've ever been, where I'm just like, I can't even take a stab at communicating. Dialogue.
It's very different.
And I remember we were on. Have you been to Turkey? Well, yeah, it's right across from Greece. So we were on the turquoise coast, and we were in all these little villages.
Yeah.
And it was me and a group of my American friends, a small group of us, like 5 or 6 of us, 5 of us, and we were exploring, and we walked into this. It was like a Turkish karaoke bar.
Oh, tight.
And we were like, this is awesome, and we were like all super into it, and there was like this old man started I guess screaming at just totally lost, flipped the lid. And was like, and the bouncer, he asked us to leave. He's like, I'm sorry, but I guess he was like, there was a lot of anti-Semitism when I was there. Really weird.
Really?
It was during the Bush administration, and it happened a couple of times because, I'm Jewish, and I'm American. Whatever that means. I'm a human, more importantly.
Right.
And I practice. I'm all about practicing inclusiveness and humanism. That's more.
It's very important.
That's more what I'm about.
It is so.
But
important.
people have their own opinions, and I remember just going over there, and we were hanging out in Istanbul, and we were at his little coffee shop, and the guy started. He's like, "Are you Canadian?" And I was like, "We're like, no, we're American." And he's kind of shook his head,
No, you should have told me you're Canadian.
Well, we should have. I don't think I even made it.
Whatever. And
And then we ended up at this other place, and we were in the Blue Mosque, and there was a guy totally cracking anti-Semitic jokes inside of this mosque, And it wasn't directed towards me, but I overheard it, and so it was really, I'd never really been in a place where it was that really in your face. It was an interesting time.
Yeah.
And I was a good many years ago, but I had no idea what this guy was saying, but he obviously didn't want us there.
We have so much peace here in America. Okay, yes, every country has their problems.
Sure.
But, we're not at war. We have Canada and Mexico and water and but over there, they're it's different because people feel like they're constantly potentially going to get attacked by the neighboring countries. And it's not modern day it's less as relevant, but it's bred within their stories, within their histories, and within their mythology and lineage. Yeah, totally.
Think about Greece.
Totally.
Totally. And the Turks. Those guys are fighting,
Absolutely.
and so they don't know how else to be. And I think that's what's interesting about that is the new Earth, the new the America, North America,
the internet.
The
internet world.
Yeah, exactly. The people were looking for a new life, so they came by boat or they walked around, whatever, but they came to this North America to start a new life with new ideals. The founding fathers were we don't like what was going on in England. We want to come into this deserted island or this new continent and do something new.
Yeah.
And so this is why that's the energy. And I feel, and even now, and if you even extrapolate that into a more of a microcosm, everybody came to the East Coast.
Yeah.
And then they were and then people were oh, we don't like the way things are being done in New York. We're going to go west. We're going to go for the gold rush. And then there's Indians, and people were, well, I think I'm just going to settle here, and it's really far, let's just stay in Ohio.
Yeah.
It's far enough, And then some people made it to Colorado, and some people made it to Utah, and then the people that made it to California, they were surprised when the Mexicans were already there.
Yeah.
And then the Asians beat them to it because they came over from the Pacific Ocean, which I don't think they even knew even existed. And so it's a different, but it's this microcosm of like the old versus new. And now we have this global Earth, and that same process of the new Earth.
Yeah.
Like, so now we have, because like you said, the internet and all of this, and the world, this Earth is one.
Yes.
And we're connected. I mean, within the last couple of months, we're in 3 foreign countries with my technology.
That's so cool.
You know, one's in New Zealand. It's shipping there tomorrow. We have 2 in New Zealand, one in Switzerland, and one in the UK so far in the last 3 months.
That's epic.
And the thing is, we're all connected through a little WhatsApp chat. And we talk to each other in Facebook. And it's like, hey, what's going on? And and I had a conversation with them today. So it's like they're just on the other side of my phone.
Yeah.
And so we have an opportunity to really effect and access humanity. And our hashtag says down here, harmonize humanity. And my delivery system is through music.
Totally.
And I'm not even a musician. I'm a doctor studying music. However, my producers over the years, we took an album, and then I remember my third producer, he goes, all of your all your frequency tones, they're all out of tune. And I was like, so we had to redo them. But that album, and we kind of brought them all into tune, and those are all my 2nd generation albums.
Huh.
But what's interesting is everything's wrong with my music in the first couple albums.
But that's how.
But people have life-changing experiences with them.
Yeah.
So it makes me think back into, okay, it's in 440. It's things are out of tune. There's artifacts in there. There's a lot of things that are not right. Yet people are repeatedly explaining their experiences, reporting their experiences that they're having with the music. So then it makes me think, okay, there's obviously a higher level of doing this.
Right.
But I also feel like, what's the lowest common denominator?
Yeah.
Because I can't deny, I have more people that listen to Energy Clearing, my first album that came out in 2007, than any album ever. That's like my #1. More people have experienced that. And when you're on my vibe system, the first album that I recommend you play is Energy Clearing, because it clears negative energy out of your nervous system, space, and dwelling. So where to start the collection then to empty your bucket?
Yeah.
And it works really well. But all the little components of it are less than ideal.
I have a very, very similar artistic experience with my creative journey. And when I first...
When was your first album? When was your first
I released
music?
I first released in 2009, and I first released my first album as Traveler was called Hysteria, and I had a partner with the project back then, Blair, and we were a live electronic band. And we released Hysteria, and I think it was 8 songs, and it was 8 songs and 2 remixes, 8 originals and 2 remixes. And we, to this day, that album, I remember playing, those tracks at Burning Man in 2010, and having people be like, whoa, that was really cool. I've never heard anything like that. And I think there's something, as a newcomer, it's the better you get, you almost conform. Because you want
what people are going to
listen to.
What
works.
Yeah, then you have your style.
So my first 2 albums is Stereo, and then I did, actually my first 3 albums were Stereo, which I all produced with the same partner from between 2009 and 2013. Stereo, Shapes, Stereo, Create, Negate, and Shapes, and each one of those was I thought they got better and better, and I think most people would agree that the production quality got better and better, and the writing got better and better. But there was something to now, for example, when I produce music now, I'm very methodical. I know what kind of kick drum I want. I know what kind of snare I want. I know what kind of bass sounds I want. I know what kind of chords I want, and it's, I
You kind of grew up.
right.
You know, instead of
and
just like.
I'm not just like, oh, that's cool, let's do this. Oh,
Yeah.
cool, like I'm gonna do that. Oh, let's go with that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
Now I would be like.
Now you're like, no.
I
You're
know.
you're like educated. You know.
Right, and also another thing.
That's the worst.
Well, it is, but it isn't. It is, but it isn't, because one thing that I've gained is countless experience.
Yeah.
I have played so many different places all over the world over the years. I'm very fortunate. For some reason, my music, it's like become like international. I think it's probably because of my name, but I've played in tons of different countries, and I play all original music. Or now I started to mix.
Zander Tron?
Traveler is my
Traveler.
producer, Alex.
Okay.
Yeah, Zander Tron is like, my real name is Alexander Argyropoulos. So
That's a great name.
it is.
I love the Greek names.
It's a great name. But my brother couldn't say Alexander when he was a kid. He had kind of like a speech thing.
Yeah.
And as a
Xander.
minute child, so he called me Alexander and then Zander, and then that just stuck. So my friends call me Zander, and Zander Tron was actually, it was a joke.
So I was thinking about Tron, like I think about like the
movie.
video. Yeah, the movie,
right.
right.
So like before I was Zander Tron, I was in college, and it was when Facebook first came out, back, I don't know, when you had to have like a college email address on
Yeah.
Facebook, and my name was, I made my name, they would tell you like, that's not a real name, you have to change your name. And so
Where'd you go to college?
UC Santa Barbara.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I made my first name was Zandercraft on social media, and then Mastercraft, this band Mastercraft, was like DJ duo, electro house kind of duo, came out, and new disco electro house, and they were huge, of course. They had that song, whenever you want me, whenever you need me, you know what I mean? Anyway, so they came out, and I was like, Mastercraft? No, I'm Zandercraft. Like, how could they do that to me?
Yeah.
So I changed my name to Zander Tron, and now that one I've let it ride. And actually, it was really funny because one of my producer buddies, this guy who produces Bert Frey, was like, I remember back when social media and like it was like, he was like, okay, I had the Traveler space, I had the web space for Traveler and stuff. This is like 2010, you know, so like people didn't think that Twitter was going to be so big. People didn't think like Instagram. I don't think it was.
I still don't get Twitter.
Instagram wasn't even a thing, dude. Instagram hadn't even been invented. So
Yeah.
I was like, how am I going to own Zander? Because there's other Zanders. Like, how am I? And my buddy's like, you got to be the real Zander.
Oh.
And so I got all the web space for the real Zander.
Oh, nice.
So I'm the real Zander, soundcloud.com/therealxander,
Oh, nice.
facebook.com/therealxander, twitter.com/thereal.
Nice.
The irony
You
is,
locked it down.
the irony is, when I went to Audio Alchemy, I realized I had like it really messed with my head in a good way, because I realized I was like,
What
wait,
messed with your head?
well, because this dude, Steve Headflux, who this guy I was talking about, who, by the way, he produced an album called Kin, K-I-N, which is absolutely phenomenal. It is like, I think, one of the greatest electronic albums that I've heard since Daft Punk put out their last album. And it really made me think that like after that Audio Alchemy, I deleted my Facebook, I deactivated. I stopped. I didn't want to be on social media. I didn't want to be. And like, it was actually kind of funny because like.
For what happened? What happened?
I've been into the conspiracy game for so long, and I got out there, and I was just like, it was so visceral, like just being on the Big Island and being with this group of producers, and all I wanted to do was just make music and make the best music as I could. And then all of a sudden I started playing around with 432, and so part of my thing, I think part of the reason people come to see me play is they know that I make a ton of music, but I don't release very much of it. And the reason I don't release very much of it is because in a world where music is so accessible, I feel like, you know, like, dude, you go to like, I'm sorry, like, I love Coachella. Like, my first Coachella was, I think my first Coachella was like 2004. I stole my mom's car. My friend and I went and like he stole the key to his my friend's mom's vacation home, and like I took the car, he got the key to the house, and we went and like, you know, we went and saw like Paul Oakenfold and the Gorillas, you know what I mean? And like we like cruised around and like did what kids do in high school at Coachella. But
I love that.
Now it's like I don't know if I'd let my kid go to Coachella now.
Well,
It's
they gotta
so
sneak, they gotta
gnarly.
steal your car.
First of all,
and they gotta take
I
off.
don't have a kid, so like that's good news. But yeah, like I don't know, like the world is so different now. There's so much access and there's so much information out there, and like I got this feeling that like, you know, I've always felt like being able to perform and play music in front of people is it's a tremendous honor. And it is a massive responsibility to be an artist because you are a role model. And all of a sudden I was like, dude, I'm doing it wrong. I gotta get off social media. I gotta make music in 432 hertz. I gotta stop making, like, I was just making stuff, like, I was literally, like, I'll never forget, I had been producing, and I've always been really underground, and I've always really liked being underground. I'm not doing this for the money, the glory. I just genuinely love to make music, and I love to make people smile. And I love to just spread the vibes, which is, I think...
That's why we're vibing.
Duh.
Yeah. It's funny, we talk about that all the time. It's like, if we just hold the vibe container, then the only people that are going to come in are other people in a like vibe.
Right.
And that's all we have to do is like just hold the space for that. And if people fall out of the vibe, then either A, our vibe's off, but if our vibe is maintained, then we just keep pulling in. It's like a bug light. You just pull in the vibe. Because that's the law of nature.
It's just going to attract more and
It
more.
just keeps
So back to the audio alchemy thing.
Yeah.
I literally, like, I got off all social media, and I've just started to get back on social media, and I'm really very wary of it. Like, I won't have Facebook on my phone because I know that they're tracking me. I know that they're taking my information. And it's not like I'm doing anything that, like, I'm not like, selling uranium to the Russians, but I don't want Facebook to know where I eat lunch and sell that information, and then I get targeted with advertisement. I don't like that.
Yeah.
So, and that actually is what
It's an interesting world like that we took. It's
right,
like
but that's what led me
you're in it, and then you want to unplug from the matrix.
Dude, I swear, I was like,
we're on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
I mean,
cool.
hello Facebook
What's
Live,
up,
like
guys?
hello world, hello
Yeah.
Facebook and Google, and the whole world is all checking this out.
And they're like literally sitting there with filters on, and every time we say a brand name, like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, they're like Xandertron, Pepsi, Xandertron, Nike, Nike. Like,
Well, stop saying it, because I don't want that to go to my phone. Yeah. Delete.
Yeah, it's true. But the point, what I'm getting at, I guess, is like the world that we live in now. We have to be very careful as artists, as producers, as musicians, as people that are in the public spotlight. It's extremely important. Like, trying to, I try not to use profanity. Language is so important. Language is everything. It's how.
Language is everything.
Actually,
it's not everything. It's actually only 7%.
Right.
93% is completely nonverbal.
It's nonverbal.
But it doesn't matter because you're still communicating in language.
It's a language,
It's just
nonetheless.
It's just nonverbal. In fact, so I'm speaking this weekend at a brain. It's called the Brain Summit, and I'm going to be presenting with all these neuroscientists and all stuff. And I'm presenting on accessing cellular memory using sound, light, and frequency technologies. That's what I'm working on.
So cool, dude.
And yeah, I mean these vibe systems. I'm working on my presentation last night, and I'm actually going through my book. And I have a whole chapter on optimal cellular communication, and I took out a section in there talking about this. And this is my quote. I quoted myself. I was reading through it, and I was like, what a fantastic quote, like that I wrote, and it talks about how there's a language of biology, of our physiology. There's a very specific language, and it's that of vibrational resonance, and this living connective tissue matrix, optimal cellular communication, is the reason why we have chronic illness, because it's so efficient, and it's so it works in such a comprehensive way. All it does is it reproduces patterns that it's done before. And that's what allows us to efficiently not be burned out every day and just kind of living our life, because it's just passively doing what it did last time. The cellular memory cycle is what allows us to efficiently be who we are.
Okay.
And that's what creates disease, but it also can create optimal cellular communication. It goes in both directions.
So let me, because we were talking about this, about neuroplasticity, and I'm really curious about addiction, and like, I believe that there's more to it than just the pattern. I believe that, I've heard that, from tons of different people, that when you do certain types of things, your brain's chemistry changes. I've heard that things like dairy, eating dairy is like the same effects on your brain as cocaine, and I've heard that, sugar and these things that we're almost, it's almost funny because society, I mean, it's not funny, but society almost breeds us into this position of being like, wanting, craving.
We were having this conversation about coffee yesterday. We were having some conversation. I was like, it's the biggest conspiracy because who are the people that live off of coffee? Doctors and lawyers. So the people that are making and politicians.
Yeah.
Like all the ones that are going to make the rules. Like if you said, hey, we're going to ban coffee.
It's it's like the world's legal.
Yeah.
Drug.
Yeah.
It's like coffee is by far.
But then alcohol. I mean it's like these bars. I mean people are just getting hammered.
I refuse to drink beer. It's literally like liquid bread. Like
we went out on 420 yesterday. We live right on Venice Beach. We went out and everyone's like, oh, let's go 420 on Venice Beach, and we went and we picked up beers.
Yeah.
And we went to the beach.
Yeah.
And we came back to my apartment afterwards, and none of us drank our beers. We drank half the beer.
Yeah.
And my buddy was like, I don't like the vibe. He's like, I don't like the vibe. And we're like, yeah. And so we took some hot bang and we sprayed rose water on our face. And that was our 420 celebration that we did.
Bro, I'm telling
so
you,
funny.
So I'm part of. I actually have a hemp farm. We make CBD derived from hemp, and the company is called Mindful Habits, and we're like a vertically integrated grow. We have a 40-acre grow in Oxnard, California, and 2 retail stores, one in Oxnard and one in Santa Barbara. And
that's great. That's convenient.
And we were giving away on 420. We were giving away hemp flower joints, and it was like
CBD joints.
Well, it's hemp flower,
Yeah,
so you smoke it, and it tastes like weed, and it smokes like weed.
But there's no.
But you don't get
There's no
high.
THC, yeah.
And it's great, and it's so funny because
It's so funny.
The
You have
co-
any
the
more
co-
of those?
I can get you some.
Yeah.
I didn't bring any, but
That's like my speed.
Yeah,
That's like, what is that called?
CBD
It's like a virgin joint.
Well, okay, so I really.
It's like a Shirley Temple.
It is. It's like Shirley Temple. It tastes good, but I really truly believe that hemp is going to take over. I think the whole. Can you go down conspiracy land a little bit? Is that cool?
Sure.
Okay, you know about William Hersh?
Warning, we're about to go down conspiracy
Don't believe
lane.
anything we
So,
say from this point.
If you want to leave the room at this moment, warning, after this moment we will be going into conspiracy world.
Well, okay, so George Washington was a hemp farmer, right?
Yeah.
And William Hersh was making,
Hearst Castle.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But it was a book publishing company and making books. And
Yeah.
hemp was so much easier and cheaper to farm, and you can make paper out of hemp.
Sure.
And he was so powerful at the time that he actually and newspapers. He was printing newspapers, and so he actually was.
Wait, we talking about Hearst or Washington?
William Hersh
Okay, yeah.
was instrumental in the legislation to outlaw marijuana and hemp at the same time, right? And
Why did he want to outlaw?
Because it was going to replace.
Oh, because he was a paper guy.
Yes.
Yeah, because he was
exactly.
He was a paper guy.
And actually, his and I don't want to go too deep into conspiracy theories. We're not going to go there. But bottom line is now the farm bill has been passed. Mitch McConnell and hemp is actually legal now, fully legal hemp in
every state.
Federally legal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it should be. I mean, it's not doing it's just nothing. It's super renewable.
It's great for the soil.
Yeah, it does everything.
It does. It really is like a miracle plant. And then they say, because obviously marijuana is a mild psychedelic, and there are a lot of people think that perhaps some of these psychedelic plants are not natural to the earth. Maybe from a meteor, or maybe they say like octopuses and mushrooms and
Octopus are from the.
You haven't heard that?
Yeah, I can see. I mean, they look like aliens.
They are.
Oh, that's right. They have the only DNA it's not
yes,
noticed.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I love
man.
octopus. That's one of my totems.
I hate when people eat octopus. I grew up in Greece, and we used to we would literally go and we'd snorkel around, and we'd see like the rocks, and you see all the shells. You're like, okay, there's an octopus over there. And you go down there, and you try to grab the octopus out. And now I look back, and it's so barbaric. I mean, we'd eat them, so it's like hunting.
Yeah.
It's a form of hunting. But you know, to get them tender, it's so sad. What you do is you take the octopus and you beat them.
Yeah, beat them, yeah.
You literally,
You gotta,
for hours,
yeah, that's
beat them
how
and you scrub them on the rocks and you just beat them and beat them.
But they're dead.
But
Yeah.
But it's so sad because they're such intelligent creatures and they're so cool.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I stopped
they're
being
sacred. They're
octopus.
living in sacred geometry. They got 8 legs.
They're
And they're the smartest beings on the planet.
Yeah.
They have like the highest intelligence out of any sea creature.
So let's not eat octopus anymore, guys.
It's a shame because I really actually like grilled octopus, but I'm sure you completely just ruined this experience for me because it's completely embedded in my subconscious mind at this point.
I mean, I have a theory about. I became a vegetarian and I'm nearly vegan, and I'm not doing it because it's like I'm doing it because I really believe that unless you go out and you kill that animal, then like what are you doing? Like why? You know, like do you need it? Is it like, or is it just because it tastes good?
Well, I think people.
You know?
I think there's different. I'm not vegetarian.
Yeah.
And
Is it healthy?
well, so my background as a doctor is with chronically ill patients and allergies. I used to run a practice called the Allergy Stop. It was a holistic allergies clinic. Like, I mean, I'm an expert in treating allergies. And I always say, like, the knowledge that I've gleaned has been through thousands of patients. You know, so you start, because you see things, you see what works and you see what doesn't work.
Right.
So you start doing what's working, and then you start seeing these patterns, and you start kind of saying, well, then like, what's really happening here, you know? And I feel that what I always found was I had a lot of patients. I saw a lot of people that were like strict vegetarians for health reasons because they couldn't eat anything. So they would eat that, but they were literally getting like zero nutrition.
Like no.
Like if they ate something, they would have like a reaction. So they had like this little window of something that they could consume, but they weren't absorbing the nutrients from it. There wasn't anything like that. So really, what the issue is, it's like the definition of an allergy. It's an error in the immune system. And there's 2 kinds of allergies. There's something called a primary allergy, where you can literally create an anchor to an experience that creates the anchor that creates the error in the immune system.
Okay.
Or B,
Like I got sick from this thing, so I can't have it.
so like no, like so like perfect example. Like if you were in like if you got bit by a dog.
Right.
Now like every time you're around a dog, you like sneeze and have like a reaction.
Oh,
Or-
okay.
or
Cool.
like-
I didn't know that was a thing. But
Oh yeah, that's or like
okay. That's
if
primary.
if somebody if you ate like if you had a bad experience with egg.
Right.
Now every time you eat egg, you
Vomit.
Yeah, you vomit something. So those are what they call primary allergies.
Got it. Okay.
And I used to treat them with this technique called multiple techniques. It was like a miracle. Like you could literally like put a signature, an energetic signature of like milk or dairy or something into your field, or an egg or a dog or cat, and then do a muscle test and reprogram your neurology, and it would go away, and they would be able to eat, consume it, and it'd be like one or a couple of sessions, and it would hold. That evolved into something called secondary allergies, which is the allergies were the symptoms, and this is really where this ties into this topic we're talking about, where you're actually the allergy are symptoms due to some kind of emotional trauma, or toxin, or infection, or something primary that is skewing your immune system, that is then creating a scrambling of your nervous system that is now causing these secondary effects. And these are the people that have like that, are allergic to 20, 50, 100 things. They don't have all those allergies. They have some kind of secondary, that's a secondary allergy to like usually an infection, usually some kind of emotional trauma, and some kind of toxicity, and or any of those little things, and then we reprogram it.
So check this out. When we talk about this, and we talk about allergies, and we talk about meat, right? So to me, I really believe like the vast majority of the meat that we eat is coming from cattle farms, or
It's bad.
they're literally being bred to be slaughtered.
Yeah.
And to me,
What was that called? Cacao-schwitz?
cacao.
You've heard of that?
It sounds like cacao, like.
Well, I say cacao because I think I stuttered.
Cowschwitz.
Cowschwitz. Yeah. You've heard of Cowschwitz?
I mean, I'm sure, is that off the 5 when you drive?
Yeah, that's the place. They call it.
I knew it.
Dude, you
that
know what
place
the-
smells terrible.
Dude, it's so bad. And you know it leads to primary.
But like, dude, so think about all of the trauma and the pain in those animals. And
or not even that, but just picture living there. Like even if you knew you weren't going to be like.
I feel so bad because like, look, it's one thing if you're like, okay, I have like 6 or 7 or 8 cows, and when they're like at the age of like 7 or 8, whatever, I'm gonna slaughter one of them, and we're gonna have a big party or whatever, and we're all gonna eat this animal. And that cow had a great life and it bred and it did cow things. It had a life, and like obviously like my family is Greek, we celebrate Greek Easter. So this Sunday is Greek Easter.
What's up with Greek Easter? I've never been Greek.
What's up with Greek Easter?
Yeah, like gyros.
Lamb on a spit.
Okay, yeah,
That's what's up, dude. And like
awesome. Where is that?
I feel bad for that lamb, though, man. It smells really good. It smells crazy good, though, dude. The thing, and you see like it's dripping because it's just slowly. I'm sitting there salivating.
Can I pose something out to you?
You want to come to Greek Easter? It's in Venice, but I won't be there this year.
I'm not going to be there either. I'm going to be at the Brain Summit.
I'm going to be I'm doing a festival I'm playing a festival up in Serenity Gathering up in.
Serenity. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful.
That's
in Joshua Tree, right?
No, it's actually where they did Symbiosis for the last few years at Woodward Reservoir. It's kind of Sacramento area.
Oh yeah, I've been to all those.
They're great.
Yeah,
I love that site. Yeah.
It's a shame they don't. Yeah, they moved on. We just got the announcement for the Patagonia 2020. I totally want to go. Did you go to the Eclipse?
I made a vow that I would not go to a festival unless I had business there, and
you have business there.
I mean, I
had business there. I went up there. We did. We set up a whole.
I didn't get.
I went there for. I went there for. We were part of something called the Lost Hotel.
Of course. I know the Lost Hotel.
Oh yeah, okay. So
I mean, I have a festival that I throw, and I have a production company stuff. So I'm aware of all these crews.
Cool. So yeah, we were part of the Lost Hotel, and you know what? The Eclipse was one of the most incredible experiences of my entire life.
Oh, that's a great.
Like where we were. I mean, at that location, the vibe and the people. We went. Over those 2 years that we were launching my other company.
For the actual Eclipse.
Yeah.
Like where were you? Who was playing? Tell us.
So it was really interesting about that. So first of all, it was in Oregon.
Yeah.
And it was in the middle of nowhere, but it was like ground zero. Like these guys found like
the spot.
The spot. Like kudos. And it was really funny because we were going up there and people were like, well, what if it's cloudy? You're like, shut up. Like it's not gonna be cloudy. It's gonna be perfect. But we had 40,000 people show up, and it's a complete, like it took us 16 hours, like this, it just, like the roads covered, and like everybody just converged, and it took 16 hours to get into the festival.
Jeez.
And I had an RV, and it was actually, I had a great time getting in. It took 16 hours.
You have an RV?
Yeah, and we,
sitting there.
So we get in, and we get settled, and we get all set up, and it's just chaos. It's just complete chaos. And we had and of course, like the Lost Hotel wasn't set up like it was supposed to, and then, like 70, I don't want to say 70%, I don't know, but whatever it was, we ended up going there, and then after the first day or so, like people, because it was a long festival, it was like a week.
Yeah.
So the first day or so, and then the whole city formed, and it was really cool. But it was like the way it's set up, it was like long.
Yeah.
So like we were way over at like the Moon Gate, and like where all the stages were way over at like the Sun Gate, we're like, and like whatever, like way on the other side. And so to go from one part to the other, and people complain about it, but there was a lot of people, and I spent most of the time at the Lost Hotel because we were running a zone, and it was fine, it was great. But so what I loved best about the Eclipse Festival was that I've never been to a festival where they had their own festival holiday in the middle of the festival.
Really?
Like the whole festival shut down from I think like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. till 1 p.m.
For the Eclipse.
For the Eclipse.
Yeah.
So like whatever you were doing, like if you were an entertainer or you were a vendor or whatever it was, everything was shut down. And you're like, for this window, go do whatever you want to do with whoever you want to do it with for this window, and then we'll resume the festival at 1 o'clock. Yeah. And it was the coolest thing because you talk to people, and you talk to people that are like, oh, what did you do? And everybody has their own story. Like I remember I was there with a friend of mine, and we just had this really, like I saw, here's the visual, here's the download that I got.
Yeah.
Because I never saw this before. And we all had the glasses, and we turned on the glasses, we put our glasses on, and this was what I downloaded happened during the eclipse. So, first of all, there was 40,000 people, it was like perfect, like not a cloud in the sky.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like, it was the most perfect thing. And as it came over, it eclipsed, and all of a sudden it eclipsed, and it was like, oh, it's close. Like, I remember, Random Rat was playing.
He was my boy.
He was playing 6 a.m.
Yes.
Yeah, he was the last guy to play.
The coolest guy.
He was the last guy to play before they shut down the stages.
Yeah.
So we were there, and as he was playing, I remember this guy behind me was like, "Hey, give me the glasses." And he looked up, and you started seeing like the corner of the eclipse like start. And then like he stopped playing, and then everybody went off to their thing, and then it closed, and then it got like really, like it got dark.
Yeah.
In the middle of the morning, like at 10 o'clock, whatever it was. It was just like this ominous, and it was a stillness. That's something I've never, ever experienced. But what happened, because here, think about the universe, okay? So the universe, everything's in perpetual movement. Nothing stops.
Right.
This portal literally was like a gateway. It was like when the eclipse opened, it was like this alignment where it was like a black hole that like sucked. It was like,
yeah.
And it was like this portal of like everything that was coming through. And I met a guy because I was on the Groove Cruise a couple months later.
There has to be like an energy pull, right? Because of the gravity. Like it has to do something to like.
Well, so he documented the time that it was eclipsed, and he said it was completely eclipsed. It didn't move for 2 minutes and 35 seconds.
Wow.
So it was like this it was like this black hole of energetic. It was like almost like this interdimensional bathtub that like sucked like everything open for like 2 minutes and 35 seconds and then closed. And then it was like, then put everything back into movement to kind of settle itself out. And that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
And I had a very profound, everybody I talked to said they had this like crazy, I'm still feel like we're in the aftermath of that, and I'm kind of wondering about the Patagonia.
Well, so I went to, in 2011.
We'll go together, we're going to set up a vibe zone, we're going to harmonize Patagonia.
You've sold me.
Yeah, you're going to be my new...
So I went to the 2011 Pyramid Lakes.
So you hear it here first, 2020 Patagonia, the most ultimate vibe zone on the planet, eclipse vibes. And we're actually going to make a special eclipse vibe edition, so stay tuned for that.
Oh, I like this.
Yeah.
I like where it's going.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those festivals, man. I mean, like, I'm a part of Envision Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
How so?
down there. I'm a part owner of Envision Festival.
Oh.
Yeah, I've been going down there every.
No problem.
I've been going down there every year since the second year that they hosted it, and I got involved. And I will say, man, it's to set up a city. It's like its own ecosystem, and it literally like, you know, now of course with the drone footage, you can literally like you can see like different areas come and grow, and it's like they're breathing. You know, like envision like for sunrise and sunset, the beach, you know, comes in and out, and not just
an organism.
The people come in, and then the stages fill, and then during the daytime the yoga places fill. It's so beautiful, and I really think that these festivals, like, you know, we were just at Coachella, and I'm not gonna lie, man, I got really sad when I saw how much I was there at the party earlier. That's what,
the trash, right?
Oh, dude,
You should have seen what we saw after the party.
Because there's people. Okay, so one of my friends was working production with the festival and with this party, and the party was paid for by sponsors. And I understand, get your name out there, go and put your name in front of people that are influencers, social media influencers, celebrities, musicians, artists, because those are the people, if they use your product, people see it and then they want to try it.
Yeah.
And I understand the logic behind it, but when you are putting your name on single-use plastic beach balls, and each beach ball is individually wrapped in a plastic bag, and then you throw away the bag, you blow up the beach ball, and then you put a single-use glow stick, you crack it, you put it in the beach ball, and you throw it in the pool. And no one's going in the pool.
Yeah.
And it's just...
Well, it's funny, nobody went in the pool because it was this beautiful pool, and nobody was in there. I went in it, but it was like cold. And it was fine, it felt good because it was like 100 and whatever degrees, but people in LA were like, oh, we're not gonna...
There's like boxes of beach balls that are just literally ornamentation that then go in the trash. And then There are the fake flowers, right? The walls with the fake flowers. And my girlfriend Gabby, who is a fashion designer, has a company called Schwartz Fashion, and she's helping them organize these flowers.
And these are her glasses?
These are her glasses.
Yeah.
And
sparklefashion.com.
She's a boss, and they're literally like these fake flowers, and like they're just parts of them are flying off, and then I get so hurt because like I love eating fish, and I've stopped eating fish recently. I've almost stopped eating fish entirely because all these little pieces of plastic, these little particles, they end up in the ocean, and the fish eat them, and then because they fall, and then they end up on the seagrasses, and the fish pick at the grass, and then they eat the plastics, and then big fish eat them, and so on and so forth. And so then you eat the fish, and there's microplastics, and like we're literally,
we live in a toxic environment.
It's sad. The only thing.
So here's what it comes down to, and this is the whole thing: is we live in a toxic world, and there's no really avoiding it. However, what can we do if the arrows are working in one direction, the arrows are going in the other?
Right.
So how do we counteract that? Through harmonic resonance.
Yes.
That's and people, like I tell people what I do with my music and the vibes and all that, and they say, and that works. And you know what I say to them?
Absolutely.
You know what I say to them? I look them dead in the eye and I say, it's the only reason I do what I do.
Totally.
There's no better way to do what I'm doing than through accessing at the highest level of chemistry influence is through the way that our living connective tissue matrix interacts with its environment, which detects vibrational resonance.
It's elevating our
It
it's
dictates
elevating
chemistry.
our brain patterns, our brain frequencies, the signals between different sections of the brain, there's all these pathways. And when you listen to music, it stimulates you, and your brain is resonating, right? And those pathways,
Or shutting down.
Depending, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like we go to these, I'd like to, so we're gonna have to wrap up the show soon.
Okay, cool.
I can have you back for another show. Like, I knew it was gonna be an easier. Like
So much
we were
more
talking
to
about
talk
like
about.
what we should talk about. I'm like, I don't think it's gonna be a problem. But I would like to before we end, I think this is relevant. I'd like to shape for the show. So I work with this biofeedback device, and that plugs into plants, and it interprets the biofield of plants as music. And I'm making an entire pharmacy of therapeutic music based off of these live plant recordings. And the reason I'm bringing that up is it really puts in perspective veganism. Because what is being proven through this biofeedback system is that just the same as animals are being farmed and harvested in less than ideal environments, how are fruits and vegetables being harvested for mass production?
It's got to be simpler, right?
Exactly.
It's got to be.
So
right?
this is the thing. So I respect like the intention of that, but it's the whole ecosystem is completely skewed. And actually, I write about this in my book. There's a quote unquote conspiracy. We can go down the conspiracy route. I actually, through my research, the overall feeling that I got was, okay, there's a conspiracy. Okay, we can go into like those stories. Like it's not going to be hard for that. But I feel like more importantly, what I got more out of it when I was doing the research was that we live on a planet of 8 billion mouths. And humanity as a collective, we are responsible for feeding these 8 billion mouths. And we need a way that can do it efficiently and reduce spoil and make it profitable. And just as a secondary byproduct, and we're coming out of a lower vibrational place, and we've just been kind of doing what we've done before.
Age of Aquarius now.
Yeah, so we're transitioning. And I feel that I don't necessarily feel that we're so much conspiracy there, but like we've just painted ourselves into a corner.
For sure.
But now out of this problem, we're now creating something new.
What we can make the
like what's 100 years from now?
The world is it's going to be so great. It's getting so much. It's getting better every day.
It's amplified.
And people are waking up and they're starting to figure it out. I create. We'll talk about it more on the next show. But what you're talking about, feeding all these people and doing it in a way that's like, how do we do this? I really like. I'm very big on blockchain tech. I actually created my own blockchain, and I believe that it is the next step to universal basic income, and I believe that everybody needs to have these basic human needs, shelter and food, and now we have these tower farms, and people can grow their own food, and I really think that we've gotten so big with everything that now we're going to start to kind of get like more small and more localized, and I think that's the only answer, and I think it's happening.
It's happening.
I know
So
it's happening here.
I'd like, what would you, before we close up the show, please tell our amazing Facebook community one more time who you are, how they can get in touch with you. I know you gave me your link to your SoundCloud, and it's really good.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, I was like jamming out. We were listening to it, and I was like, this is awesome. I'm excited to have you on our show. So,
my name is Zander. I produce under the alias Traveler. You can check out everything at soundcloud.com/travelermusic. And everything is for free download. And I actually just released last week my first track in 432 hertz. For the last 3 years, I've been really spending the time to perfect my craft, and I've converted all of my tracks to 432 hertz. When you come see me play out, everything I play is in 432, even stuff that I previously released. And I really think it's important to. I really think it's just important to educate ourselves, and music and science. Music is art, but music is also science, and everything around us is science. So, I think how to get in touch with me. I don't know, man. I'm kind of just like hit me up on Facebook or SoundCloud or something. Hit me up on SoundCloud.
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, and I am Dr. Vibe, Dr. Steven Schwartz, and this has been another incredible episode of the Epic Vibe Show with Dr. Vibe. Tune in next Monday at 7 o'clock on the Bioharmonic Technologies Facebook channel that you're listening to here right now. Peace and love and gratitude. We are harmonizing humanity one viewer at a time. God bless.